Welcome to Think Different Nation, a Steve Jobs Playbook, the podcast that reveals how we perceive, collect, and connect the dots of creation. Your host is Ty Glover, ideation coach and consultant. Inspired by Steve Jobs' belief that to create truly innovative ideas, or rather to connect his proverbial dots, you have to trust in something. Your gut, destiny, life, karma, or whatever. He'll explore how these forces shape the most groundbreaking ideas. Ready to challenge your thought patterns? Let's dive in.
Hi, my name is Ty Glover, the creator of Neuro creative programming, and I want to thank you for coming into this episode of Think Different Nation, a Steve Jobs Playbook. So, before we dive in, I want you to think about something. Have you ever made a decision that felt right, even when it didn't make sense on paper? Well, we've all been there. And that gut feeling, that emotional pull, it turns out that those instincts are doing more than just tugging at you. They're actually running a show behind the scenes. And in this next section, I'm going to show you what's exactly going on and how it's all working. Because this is all about your emotions being your second language. And this is part 3 of a 5-part series on the philosophy of ideation. So you might think that your decisions actually come from the logic that you employ. But if you look closer, you'll find out that there's a deeper system that's quietly shaping what you notice, what you believe, and even what you pursue. And that's your feeling mind at work. And it's been organizing your world since your earliest memories, even before you could explain it. And in Neuro creative programming, this is the second layer of creative perception. So if body awareness is the system that collects the raw materials from our surroundings, then the feeling mind is the system that gives the input, meaning. It tells you what that input means. So in Neuro creative programming, the second layer is the creative perception. So if body awareness is the system that collects raw inputs from your surroundings, then the feeling mind is the system that gives them meaning. And this is the second system that I'm talking about right now, the feeling mind. Because this is the part of your perception that doesn't sense the world, it interprets it. You see, the feeling mind's job is to assign meaning to your experiences. And it builds emotional categories and storylines that help you decide what matters and what doesn't. And it does this through 5 key processes. You see, the feelings mind's job is to assign meaning to your experiences. And it builds emotional categories and storylines that help you to decide what matters and what doesn't. And in doing this, it does 5 key things. First of all, it assigns emotional weight to those experiences. And the second thing is it labels those patterns as good, bad, safe, unsafe, or even possible or impossible. And the third thing is it stores emotional memories, even when factual details may fade. But it also helps you to build the story of who you are based on the repetition and the feeling. This is our mental frameworks, our mental models. And also, it filters out the input through existing frameworks that exist, to make sure that we don't perceive, we don't see, we don't understand something that our mental frameworks, our mental models were structured to block us from being able to perceive and understand. And this is why a design that resembles something from your childhood, for example, may feel right. Or why a project that reminds you from a past failure might feel wrong, even before you start that project. But it's not logic at play here. It's the meaning making that's taking place within your mind. In this process of assigning meaning, it happens fast. Because most people confuse thinking with meaning. But meaning making, it isn't slow, it's automatic. And your feeling mind is a fast moving editor because it's always filtering out the inputs that don't match what you've known before in the past. And it also highlights the details that feel emotionally rewarding to you. And it rejects the sensory emotional data that resembles the past pain, even when that context has changed around what caused that pain. And it's intuitive too, but it's not always accurate. You see, this version of information, it's an emotional familiarity, not a creative insight. And what this means for creativity, is that the feeling mind is not the enemy, it's your logic system. It's the way your brain has organized the world before you had a language to even assign to it. But that language, it can limit you if it runs unchecked. You might, for example, overlook valuable inputs because they don't look familiar to you. Or you might notice the kinds of details your system already finds comforting, thus filtering out everything else. Or you may even reject sensory patterns or questions in emotional cues that could have sparked deeper insight, simply because they're echoing something that's uncomfortable to you. And the result? It's not just weaker ideas, but it's a shower pool of ingredients from which you're going to be building. In the feeling mind, it doesn't just influence what you create. It filters what you are allowed to notice within the first place. So then, how does neuro-creative programming train emotional meaning? Well, in NCP, the goal isn't about controlling the feeling mind. It's more so about becoming aware of how it's shaping your reality so that you can work with it, not for it. I mean, you can think of it as the lens that filters the input that you receive. You can't remove it, but you can clean it and adjust it and learn to see when it's coloring what you perceive. And you can train the feeling mind through observation. You see, you don't need to suppress emotion. You need to study it. And the way you do that, for example, is you pause when the meanings feel too fast or too certain. And you ask, what framework is being filtered through here? Or you notice when you're rejecting something that's unfamiliar. Or you notice when you're rejecting something. Is it unfamiliar or is it truly wrong? But also you track emotional themes behind the creative preferences. And you may ask yourself, what are they echoing from an earlier experience? But I don't want you to consider these as being hacks. They're only tools for understanding the architecture of your thinking. Now, if you ask yourself, why does this matter? Well, every belief you hold, every story you repeat, and every reaction that feels automatic, it's all been there and it's been shaped by that feeling mind. And once you see that, you can begin to regain authorship and you move from reacting to choosing, from familiar patterns to new possibilities. So in the next part 4, I'm going to talk about where big ideas come from. And that's within the creative insight layer, where you don't force great ideas, you assemble them. So I want to thank you for coming into this episode of Think Different Nation, a Steve Jobs Playbook. And my name is Ty Glover, and I bring clarity to the obvious. Cheers.
That's all for this episode of Think Different Nation, a Steve Jobs Playbook. Your host, Ty Glover, thanks you for listening to the show and exploring the process of connecting the dots to create groundbreaking ideas. Stay curious, keep trusting in that something, and tune in next time for more insights that help us think differently.